Hi folks, welcome to my Bit Retro Journal. Today I want to be talking about graphic user interfaces, which I've had a bunch of videos on that. Again, they're sort of closely intertwined with operating systems, especially in in 2024 modern times. When we think of operating systems, we think of the graphical interfaces that are part of them. But I wanted to talk about graphical interfaces back at the start of them, back in the 80s. Macintosh was sort of the thing that introduced it to the masses in 84. And I've done a video where I compared GUIs for the Mac, the Amiga, the Atari, and the QL. But one thing that, a lot of folks that watch those videos were surprised about the QL's graphic user interface, and it turns out, yeah, it actually didn't come with one. The graphical interface was a third party, and because of that, what's interesting is that there were actually more than one. So ICE was the first and the one that seemed to have been the most successful. But there were other ones, similar to in the PC world, where before Windows became the dominant interface, you had GEM, you had DeskMate from TRS, from Radio Shack. So you had a whole bunch of different variations. And similarly for the QL, there were actually a ton. It turns out the reason I think that ICE was the most successful is because it came on a ROM cartridge and didn't really require anything else. For instance, if I just reboot this, you'll see that you can't see it'll actually spin the first drive. You can hear it, but it'll come up really fast. So go ahead and watch this. Boom, it's up. It spins the first drive because it's looking for there's a definitions file that allows you to change some values, mainly the ones that you can set here. There's other ones too. So, oops. Yeah, so you can set all sorts of devices. So for instance, for devices, if I want, I can change the second one from floppy to Winchester. I know you can't see all the things, below the, where is it? You can't see things below that line, but if I put it in monitor mode, you'd be able to see it. And I'm going to do most of this on my PC today. In any case, what I found surprising, and you might find surprising, is that there were a ton of alternative to ICE, and we're going to take a look at those. But their flaws were twofold. Actually, all the other ones really required some form of loading from media, and if all you had was a QL with microdrives, that was problematic, and also the amount of memory they took up. I'll show you how ICE takes up only about a K of memory from default, whereas some of the other ones, the minimum I think was like 30K or almost 30K. And so with 128K, with 32 taken for screen memory and about 10 for system stuff, that left you about 86K, and you can't take a third of that or more for an interface that you load in from media. And so I think that's one reason that ICE is kind of was the de facto for a while, until modern days with upgrades to the operating system and machines like the Q68. There's a much better pointer environment based graphical interface that everybody uses now. No one uses ICE anymore. But in the early 80s, I should say the mid 80s, 85, 86, I used it in the late 80s, early 90s. ICE was kind of the de facto standard because it was so quick and so much low overhead. So today I'm going to compare it to one other one called JAM. That's the one I've been playing with, and it's kind of interesting. So what I want to do is I want to go to my desktop. Okay, here I am on the desktop. I've got it set up so you can see a version of ICE going. And you can see down here, this is the part that you usually don't see when I'm using it on a TV, in TV mode for US NTSC. And then here I have dir MDV2. This is where I'm going to load jam. Both of these, by the way, if you look at the configuration, they are, this is just JS-ROM, 128K running one time, so actual speed. And this one is just running JS-ROM with Idersoft's ICE-ROM, 128K running. Same speed as a regular QL, so nothing fancy on these. But before we go into this, I do have this article from QL World that goes into, so this was in 1985, or actually 86, QL World, December, and it talks about the various front ends, and it covers ICE first, and it was the first one to come out, and then it covers EASE, which is its own system. It has QATs, and then the other one is QIMP, and it gives you an entire list of comparisons. Generally, ICE was the only one that came with a ROM. Now you see that in this article, it actually said, well, QATs did as well. And the only issue is, I took a look at that. It actually comes with a ROM, but you still need to load about 30K of software from microdrive. So it doesn't really help. And then these end up being about 40 plus K of software from microdrive or floppy. So they're not really set up for a bare bones computer. I think that's why ICE kind of was the standard. But besides this article, I have, if you go to Dylan Jones's front ends page in the QL forum, so it's his entire software repository. You can see that you have, so here's a small doc one. I think this is for pointer environment, which kind of does its own thing. But EASE, so I'll be able to look at EASE at one point. GAM, which is Graphical Access Manager, that's another one that wasn't mentioned in that. I'll take a look at that. There's JAM, this is the one we're looking at today, Job Application Manager. There's almost Cascade, which is like a startup menu. I don't know if that's a graphical interface, and it requires pointer environment. QATs, that's the one that the article talked about. And the one difference is it's really more like a, what's Amiga have? The Opus directory copy. So it's really more of, it doesn't give you icons, it gives you lists of files. And then QDesk is, I think, the modern version. No, so QDesk is another one to look at. It's QDT, that's the modern version. You've seen this on my channel from Q68 running a Mac OS-like environment. So yeah, so those are the, so QIMP isn't even in here, so I may not be able to take a look at that. So yeah, so these were a lot of the various ones. Anyway, today we're going to look at QJam, or Jam, not QJam. And so I have Jam here. The way you load it is you're going to, I'll run mdv2 boot, and that is going to run the boot program that is going to then load Jam, and the Jam is, if you do a file size on that, I'm going to do F1, and I do have I have another QL2K open which has jobs, and I'm going to use this later. This actually has TK2 on it as well. And if I go, and it just loaded it, by the way. Command Jam was loaded. And so if I do wstat mdv2, you'll see that these are all the files that are on it, but you'll see that I didn't want to put Toolkit 2 on any of these because I want to show you how much memory things are being used. So Jam is 29104, which if you divide that as a calculator, is 28.5 times 1024 is 29. Yeah, so it's 28.5K, and you'll see that that number is going to come up again. All right, so now we have this loaded, and if I type Jam, it brings up the Jam interface. So yeah, and it allows for floppies and MDVs. Now you can't redefine them on the QL. You actually can. You can also have as many on ICE. I mean, you can have as many as 8 for each of these. So that's nice. These are unfortunately in JAM. You just have MDV1, MDV2, FOP1, FOP2, and RAM1. This is one reason I didn't try to run it on a real machine, because VDrive requires MDV3. And you don't double click, you just single click, and it shows you the files. Again, one comparison, if I go, I have the same, so if I go MDV1 and double, so here, a single click doesn't do it, I got to double click. And I think that's one of the differences, that ICE kind of works like you expect a graphical interface to work, whereas JAM is more of a menu-driven kind of thing. But you can see here, look at all the icons you get for BASIC, QL, Abacus, Export, Easel, Data Archive, Help, Task. Notice that none of these are all generic, but for executables, it actually is able to take any file and just check to see if its header is executable. Whereas here, they allow you to, if it's exe, it thinks it's a job file. If it's right, if you look at that, that was my exe, and then CDE, it sees as machine code. It doesn't know bin, and then it knows Abacus and QL and BASIC, and that's it. I do like their generic document icons better than ICE uses more folders, whereas these use sort of files. The other thing is, notice it can show 24 files, whereas ICE can only show 12. And I think the reason ICE did that is because sometimes when you, sometimes I'll come up, if I go MDV2, sometimes it hangs to try to get that last file. So, because it's reading on a real machine, it might read a real microdrive. The less information you can show, the less you're going to hit that microdrive up. So I think that's why ICE did only 12, because you can then just easily go up here and get to the next page. And then if it has to load again, then you'd have to wait to finish loading the new set. So I think ICE tried to be smart about the fact that it was using microdrives a lot. One thing that's interesting is this has a built-in RAM disk. However, the weird part here, if I go and copy, see it's still hanging. So it does take a little extra time sometimes. If I select that, it's kind of a roundabout way. I've got to say copy, then say no, just a single file. So there's lots of rigmarole I got to do. And then if I say copy to RAM disk, now it's copying into RAM disk. It takes a second, again, because it's microdrive emulation is pretty slow. Now if I go here and say dir RAM1, it actually doesn't exist. It knows about MDV, but it doesn't know about RAM disk. So the RAM disk is literally just internal to JAM. Now on the QL, I keep saying QL, on ICE, ICE actually does come with a RAM disk. It doesn't come by default, so if I try to do this, it'll say the thing doesn't exist. But I'll show you later how I can install one, and then how it actually works. Like if I try to format a RAM disk, because the software is not installed, and you do that, you give it a 10. It just says it's not found, so it won't let you format a disk. It doesn't exist. All right, but cancel. But ICE does give you the ability to do a RAM disk. One thing before I go into that, let's go back here. Double click on that and go back here and do. I keep using the mouse as opposed to. So here, notice that if I try to click on QL term, which is an executable, if I there's no double click, and the selection's weird too. So if I select it, it disappears until I move the mouse off, and then the way I have to do this, I go File, Start, and now I've tried exec and it doesn't really work very well. So I'm going to do exec with wait, and this is going to run. And it runs that now. Here, all I have to do is just say double click. It's a little bit more intuitive, and then it's going to also start it up. Yeah, and then if I do F3 and quit, takes you back to ICE, and then here the same thing, F3 quit, takes you back to jam. So yeah, that part works kind of weird. Now I'm not just going to trash jam. There are some cool things about it, but I wanted to first talk about the things that aren't so cool about it. So besides lack of icon support, let me show you some other cool things that ICE can do that jam cannot. First of all, copying files is a little easier in ICE. It's more intuitive. Like I said, here you just do a single click to get each of these. There's no double clicking, and you just use, there's the menu options to do all this stuff. So it's really a menu based and not object based like the ICE is. Here I have choice, and that's a tool that comes on microdrive with ICE. And I wanted to show you a couple of things. Again, the executing a command gave you the opportunity to run in the background, but when I did it, it just, I'll show you what it looks like. It's a bit disconcerting. Start. Exec. It'll start it up. Yeah, and then you're here and you can do Control C. Well, and then I guess you hit that. So now you have the program's running in the background, but if you hit F3, you get, yeah. So it's a little, it kind of overwrites the screen, and so we're running that so I can do Q for quit, and it'll just get me back. Now ICE is running, but it's kind of destroyed. Gotta get jam, sorry. Gotta get out of jam and come back into it. So it doesn't work very well. I'll show you how ICE does it. So first of all, I can install RAM disk. Installed, and I'll deal with that in a second. Let's create a task. So this is how Choice does its task management. So I'm going to do QED, 20 kilobytes. Yes, it does. Does this have a refresh key? Yes, and its refresh key is F5. Task 2, we're going to do baton exe, 20 kilobytes, no display keeping, and the control key is going to be Control F3, and then save the task on MDV3 as test. Yeah, that's fine. And now I can quit all this just to show you a little bit of extra features that ICE gives you over Choice. Quit. There we go. So now, if I load this up again, you'll see that the way ICE does multiple jobs in the background is it gives you a little bit more control given Choice. So now I've got this task file I just created. First of all, I did the RAM disk, so now I can actually format my RAM disk. Format. So I installed the driver for the RAM disk. I can say RAM, this time I'll give it 5. Boom. And if I click that, it has 4 now in it. I can, let's say I'm going to copy a small program, Color Bass, which I'll also show you. The Color Bass is the coolest little program that this has, but I'll copy the README file over because it's pretty small. There it goes. Copied it over. Oh, it's not finished copying. But yeah, so I got to read and write. There it is, the finished copying. Now if I go on a RAM disk, there's my README file. And how big is it? README file is, 500 bytes. Not very big at all. Now if I quit and do RAM 1, there it is. And I can copy MDV RAM 1 README text to con, and it'll actually just put that. So the RAM disk does work on both sides. Okay, so that's pretty cool. But running the task manager's job now, here I'm going to be able to run them sort of in the background. So that's running it with exec, not with exec W. I run the task file, and I don't even need choice anymore because it doesn't use it. So click the run to load QED, loads into memory, gets it ready to start, and then same for, again, it's just reading it from floppy right now, or MDV. Baton, these are all small programs. And this is done on a 128K machine. Yeah, we have QED. So if I go into QED, there it is. Hello world. I can go Control F3, oops, F3, and I can go to Baton. And here, 45. It runs Control F3. Go back to QED. It'll refresh the screen, and there I have both of them running. I can go into ICE, back to ICE as well, and do file stuff if I want. I can't run anything. I've already shown that, but if I go back, if I quit, it puts me back in the control manager, and then here I can just quit everything. Yeah, and I'm done, and I have my memory back. I should have about 70K left because about 5-6K is used for the RAM disk. Yeah, so that works really well. And then the other program that comes with this that is really nice is again, it's loading the microdrive, which is slow. It's the fact that I can change the background on ICE using this color program. And some of the options that I have for color is kind of nice. So it'll ask me, the default color is always green. Is this the color I want? No. And I can, for instance, enter 50 for orange, or 250 for yellow. And again, it's just the various dithering combinations it does. I can enter 230 for pink. I can also do 166 gives me pinks, but with lines. You can do it vertical or horizontal. I don't know what the number is for the other. I can have a Mac look. That's pretty cool. The one I like though is I'm going to do 220. That's the nicest one. And then, yeah, so that gives you a really nice screen. So again, this is one thing you can do in ICE that you can't do in any, well, you can't do it in Jam. And I haven't, reading through the other ones, I haven't seen that. And you can, again, you can save that as a, you can save choices, and it would have saved it on MDV1, because that's the boot one. And what it does is it saves a def_ICE file. So yeah, so that part is, like I said, ICE is pretty cool, but Jam has some features that I want to share with you here in a second. Let's just load this up. Yeah, it's just, sometimes it struggles to read the micro drive. Oh, there it is. And you can see that this is just that micro drive emulation by QL2K. And hasn't come back yet with it. So I think there should be one more no. So I don't know where it saved it to then, if it didn't save it to, yeah. Maybe it saved it to microdrive, maybe it saved it to MDV3, because that was my drive at the time that I had it open. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, there it is, def_ICE. So that's what you would have in your, you'd have it in MDV1 and you would load it up. It's not very big, it's a very small file. Yeah, it's 38 bytes. Okay, but going back to Jam, what are some of the cool things Jam can do? Like I said, it can show not all the icons, but it does have the option to show it in text. And this part's really cool though, because now it can show up to 51 files besides 24. So that's actually pretty fancy. The other thing it can do, and let me show you this, because I can let's see how long, I might have to speed through this, but if I go, I'll do this with the icon file. If I go 10 rem, just a simple command, and we're going to go for I equals 1 to 55, save mdv1 test, and next I. So this is going to save 55, and I'll speed through this because this might take a bit, but this is going to save 55 test files. All right, let me speed through this. Okay, I'm back, and so what I did is I created basically 55 files on the fly. You can see this just has all these, yeah, and there's just a ton. And what I wanted to show you is that in Jam, it actually does a pretty good job. And now in ICE, what you'd have to do is we keep having to hit that arrow. For 55, you do about 4 pages worth, right? 5 pages worth. But with Jam, if I do mdv1, and by the way, I can speed up this cursor. Yeah, now it's moving a little better. But if I go boom, you'll see that I can show up to 51 files on the screen, and then even more further. Yeah, look at that. That's really nice. And if I want to show them as icons, you'll see that this also works really well. Oops, boom. And then I can go to the next one. So it does allow that. Again, I think the reason ICE didn't show that many files is because on a, if these are all, with ICE having to figure out if it's an executable or not, it would take a long time to try to go through all of them. And it can here. It's pretty fast now because I just created them. But if this was a brand new disk that I hadn't seen it before, it might take a long time just to finish a listing up. So, but okay, other than that being cool, and again, I really do like, I wish ICE had this feature here of listing by name, because I think that becomes very handy, even if it takes a while to load. Here's the really cool part of it. First part is memory info. ICE gives you this, which is really cool. It tells you how much is in the system. The program stuff includes itself, and then how much free memory it is in basic. And, ICE kind of just gives you very simple, there's 2 jobs running, I have 68K free. So it's pretty primitive in that sense. Again, and I'll show you why that's the case. But and then here we also, this is the coolest part. I gotta kill that first. It has a jobs menu. And in the jobs menu, it gives you, this is like Toolkit 2. It shows you all the jobs that are running, and you can set priorities. I've tried release and suspend. It doesn't really work very well, but at least you can kill a job and set the priorities, which I think is really cool, and very Toolkit 2-like. And here's the coolest thing. By the way, when you quit, well, the coolest thing is this: you can actually kill the clock, and it goes away. Now, the thing is, the clock actually only runs when Jam is running, because I tried this on. Does it come back? It doesn't. Yeah, so it comes back. So Jam is the one that, if you exit it, it kills it anyway. So in other words, if you're running Toolkit 2 and you do a jobs command, and I'm not running Toolkit 2 here, but if you do a Toolkit 2 and run jobs command, when you exit Jam, it doesn't actually show you anything. But yeah, you can actually kill it. So the jobs stuff is I wish ICE had that. That's really cool, because that's the one thing that's missing from ICE, is this whole Toolkit 2 thing. All right, the final thing I wanted to show you is we're going to reboot the machines here. All right, back to the setup. So all I've done is here, I just rebooted and hit F2. And for here, I rebooted, I LRAN boot, and then hit F1 to install Jam, and just type Jam. What I wanted to show is, first of all, this says it'll have 77K free. And I think this is partly what the graphical interface needs at the time to, the fact that it's covering this window and redisplaying it kind of stuff. Here, it'll say that it's, memory info. It says there's 48K free, so it has about 29.5K less memory. And this will actually bear out. So here's what I wanted to do. I'm going to exit both of these. And I'm going to show you how much memory each of these actually has. I'm going to do a new. And then same here. Now it turns out, I'm going to do a new. And we can make this mode 8. New. There we go. And so I have this thing up as well. So this is just a plain old JS-ROM, nothing else. This is vanilla QL. So here, if I try to reserve memory, and so 86K, so even though the screen memory takes up 32K, you'd think there'd be 96K left, but I think the system takes about 10K, because here, if I do 86 times 1024, this is my number, and if I try to set aside memory for 88065, it's going to say out of memory, but if I say 88064, oops, I need to do new every time. A equals 88064. Yeah, it works. And so that's the maximum that I can take, 86K. Now, this is, again, QL. If I do, ICE running on it, again, just plain old ICE. If I go and do 85K, so that's minus 1024. So if I try to do, again, do a new A equals resper 87041 out of memory. But if I say A equals resper 87040, it works. So this basically loses 1K when it's not running from the bare bones QL. And then for Jam, because obviously I loaded in 28.5K, basically what I'm left with is about, the math is exact. So it's 86K. So again, if I do 80, well, they both take about a K to install their keywords. So it's 28 plus 1 is 29.5. So I'm left with 56.5. So 56.5 deleted from 86 is that 29.5. Okay, so if I do 56.5 times 24, sorry. All right, and here if I do again, A equals resper 57857, not enough memory, but if I say A equals resper 57856, it works. So yeah, so this thing leaves you 56.5. ICE leaves you 85, and a bare bones QL leaves you 86. So that's why ICE is pretty efficient. It only takes a K when it's not running. So a K of just, and I don't even think it's a full K. I think it's a block of K that it takes aside. Where is that going to? It's going to the fact that you're allocating for the keyword, and the fact that, some other information, as well as where do you go reloading ICE when you run an exec command. So it's kind of modifying a few things in the system, and some of those reside in RAM. Let's go back to my desktop. But yeah, ICE versus Jam. I think Jam had some interesting elements. It was disappointing because it used twice as much memory. So you expect it to have even more features, but I did like the job feature on that. I hope you enjoyed that. If you do, I'll do more comparisons with other QL graphical interfaces. In any case, that's really all I wanted to share with you today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.